Hey everybody, Matinee 67, and look, Tom is back.
Yeah, I'm back.
On this
back
week.
For Matinee. Yeah, we got 3 of them. Got Dracula.
No, yeah, we got a Netflix one, we got a Shudder one.
An Indian one from, Ghost Stories from India.
Yeah.
And a movie one.
And a movie theater one.
Yeah, Grudge.
Yeah. So,
we're going to talk about them.
Yeah, we'll talk about them in that order.
They were well watched. I looked at them. Okay.
You looked at them.
I looked at them.
All right. So the first one we're going to be talking about is one that's kind of been reviewed a lot. It's kind of was a big deal when it came out. This is the new Dracula series, miniseries really, that premiered on Netflix. Now I think it premiered on BBC One in the UK over 3 successive nights, January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And then Netflix got it, presumably internationally, on the 4th. So they dropped, it's a 3-episode retelling of Dracula.
Yeah, each one's about an hour and a half, so it's kind of like 3 movies.
It's kind of like 3 movies in one.
Like a trilogy.
Yeah, it's sort of like that.
It's like the Dracula trilogy. What they did with this one, I kind of liked it. It's a mixed bag. It is. It's a lot of good stuff, and it's got some other stuff that you're like, well,
that was a little weird.
Yeah. What they did is that they took every Dracula story including Anne Rice vampires, and kind of made it into one continuous story. Okay, it's got a lot of stuff you'll remember, Carfax Abbey. Well, Dracula in the original story gets killed in Carfax Abbey, but not in this one. In this one, he never really goes there, does he?
I don't think he
never
does.
Really
no.
makes it there.
Yeah.
It has a lot of the same characters, but there's a gender swap in one of them, and they're not really the same characters. It's almost kind of like a parallel universe Dracula. Sort
of, which I think this was, and probably most people know, because like I said, this was a really popular thing and a lot of people have reviewed it. This was written and directed by Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, who probably a lot of people know. They've done Doctor Who, they did Sherlock.
Yeah, I could feel that.
This is very much along that same line, because that's kind of their thing, where they like to take 19th century literature and kind of mix it up, bring it into the modern era sometimes, or give it a modern sensibility, even if they set it back in the time. I should say too that I've seen bits of Sherlock, I've seen bits of Doctor Who. I'm not I haven't watched the whole series, but I know that this is kind of their style and this is something that they do. However, I do really like Mark Gatiss's, he did the History of Horror, which was a 3-part documentary about the history of horror movies. And he's also done one that came out in conjunction with this called In Search of Dracula, which I've also heard is really good. He's super into Hammer movies.
Yeah, you can tell.
And there is, and actually one of my favorite moments in the 3rd episode, which is the one that which is the most controversial, that a lot of people are talking about. There's a great shout out to the 1958 Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing Dracula in that one that I recognized immediately, having to do with someone running across a table and jumping up and pulling curtains down and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, Dracula 1958.
Across the 3 movies, Dracula evolves a lot.
Yeah.
He starts off kind of being almost kind of like Klaus Kinski's Nosferatu, mixed with a little bit of Gary Oldman's take of Dracula in the very beginning. All right, and then he kind of evolves into more like a Christopher Lee type Dracula, and eventually he basically almost becomes full blown Lestat de Lioncourt.
That's actually a good way of looking at it.
They're trying to cover all bases to make all vampire characters and all vampire stories have relevance in this story. And it seems like they do everything that all of the vampire movies did, pretty much, or tried to. It
almost seems like they're trying to synthesize.
All
the vampire myths and all the subsequent adaptations, all the different. Because obviously the Dracula story came out a long time, and some people that are freaking out about this being wildly different from the novel, but it's a lot of the Hammer movies were wildly different. Nosferatu was wildly different from the novel.
Yeah, in the 3rd episode where it's taking place kind of in the more modern era, you can feel a lot of the 80s vampire movies. You can feel Queen of the Damned movie in it, Interview with the Vampire, just all that. Even Blade. There's it kind of felt a little bit like Blade. It also kind of felt like Torchwood.
It gave me a big Torchwood vibe.
So it's not a bad series. I think it's a pretty good series. There are some things in it that I thought were a little bit hokey, kind of forced. Some of it's kind of forced. Like there is a what's the girl's name?
Which one?
The one that was in all three of the damn movies.
The nun.
The nun.
Agatha Van Helsing.
Yeah, there's a Van Helsing in it, but of course it's not the Van Helsing you know. It's a female. Although it's similar, she's a vampire hunter in a way. It's well done. I see why they did that, because they had to have a long story arc over three.
Yeah, and they
episodes.
were doing a lot of different stuff with the novel. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, how you feel about this? Because I've watched like a bunch of people's reviews of it, and most people, it seems like most people really dug the first two. Yeah. And then the third one was getting very like wildly mixed reviews, which that's probably understandable, because that was the one that deviated the most from the source material. Yeah. I mean, I kind of liked, the first, section of it is kind of like sort of taken from the first third of the novel, where Jonathan Harker is at the, Castle Dracula in 1897, and then, he escapes and goes to the nunnery and stuff like that. And that's kind of where it starts to deviate. I do love that the second episode, which probably was my favorite one of all of them, which is called Blood Vessel, which I thought was hilarious, actually takes place on the Demeter during Dracula's voyage to England. Yeah. So I liked that because I feel
they
like...
did a good job with that one. I liked
that. They did. I liked that they made that a whole... I mean, it was, but it's like, it was very short shrift.
Yeah, it didn't really say what exactly happened
on the ship. It was just kind of like they found like some ship's logs like after, because the novel's epistolary. It's all in like letters and newspaper reports and stuff.
They got a whole movie's worth of story just out of the damn
And it was almost like a murder mystery, which I thought was kind of cool too.
Almost kind of like Knives Out.
It's like you knew who obviously Dracula was the one killing everybody, but it's like the people on the ship didn't know that. But so that was probably my favorite one.
Yeah, and I was expecting in the third one from him to actually show up to Carfax Abbey, but it doesn't.
Not quite.
Not quite. Although, okay, that's what they wanted to do. I don't think I would have done it that way, but I guess it worked. They wanted to show him in a modern setting.
Yeah. Some of it was successful. Like, some of it I liked... I like the idea of him being in a modern era. And like I said, they're not the first people to do that. That's been done lots of times.
They had to synthesize all those modern stories.
Right. That's what I mean.
I think that's what I think they were doing.
I wasn't expecting it to go that way, just because the first two took place, in the 19th century. So I was kind of expecting the third one to as well. So like when you kind of get to the end of the second one and he arrives at Whitby and it's like, it's 2020... and I was kind of like, oh, well, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Some of it I liked, some of it not so much. I have to say that it took me a while to get used to how funny it was, because there's like a lot of humor in it. And I guess I wasn't expecting that at first, like when I started watching the first episode. And so like the first time they were like being funny and shit like that, I'm like, what? And like the tone seemed kind of weird. But like after I kind of rolled with it, I kind of got into it more. Yeah. But I really liked the guy, Claes Bang, who plays Dracula, was like really good. And what's the woman's name that played, her name's Dolly something, who played Sister Agatha and then like a later incarnation of Van Helsing. She was great in it too. And like, I think the best thing about it was like kind of the interplay between the two of them. So, vampire versus vampire hunter, and, this kind of cat and mouse game with the two of them and her trying to destroy him and stuff like that. Like I said, how you feel about it, this is not a faithful adaptation by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that they took from the book, but they reinterpreted it in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? And they focused on some stuff. Like I said, I really liked the middle part where they focused on the journey of the Demeter, and they made like a whole 1.5-hour episode out of that, which you don't see in that many. I mean, usually, even in the book, it's just kind of like, the ship showed up at Whitby, and like the dude was chained to the wheel, and like a wolf jumped off it, and then that's kind of all you hear about it, pretty much.
Yeah, the best part of this series, if you ask me, was that they opened up a concept that they really didn't explore, even in Anne Rice books. Well, I guess they explored it a little bit, but Dracula didn't really know what the powers of a vampire were. Yeah. And he really didn't know what was possible. So he was doing experiments, like back in the day. Yeah. hundreds of years ago. He was doing experiments to try to figure out what the limitations of it, what would happen if you did this or did that. Like what happens if you turn a baby into a vampire? What happens if you, have sex with or have sex with a vampire woman? Can you have a child?
Right.
All kinds of stuff like that.
That comes out of vampire.
Yeah, what comes out? You know what I mean? If she ever. So he's trying to figure out how to reproduce, and he hasn't figured out how to reproduce. And I don't think he ever does in the book. Or kinda.
Yeah. I think it's good because it's like, if you were Dracula, like if vampires were real, clearly, and you had been around, I mean, at the point at the beginning, which takes place in 1897, he had been around for, 300, 400, 500 years, 400 years. So after that long, you'd kind of get bored, and it's like you wouldn't really have any other vampires to like talk to, like a master vampire that could tell you, hey, these are the rules and all this stuff. So you'd kind of have to figure them out by yourself. Yeah. So I figured that, there's kind of like a little bit of that going on, even though he's essentially like, he's not like an existential Anne Rice type of vampire, really. He's like pretty much just a predator. And he's very like snarky and suave and charming and everything like that. Another thing that I kind of liked, an element that they added to it that I don't think this was gone into in the book, but where he basically chose his victims sort of carefully because he was absorbing parts of their personality, their memories, their knowledge, like things they knew how to do. Yeah, that's what kind of like it reminded me a little bit of Lestat, because I think the Lestat vampires were kind of like that too. Yeah. But it was mostly reading minds, and they could understand what somebody was thinking if you had the power. Yeah. If you had enough power. But I liked it. I liked that aspect of it. They also changed it up a little bit. A person, if they drank a person to death without really fucking them up real bad, they came back as a ghoul. And I wouldn't really say as a damn vampire. More like a zombie. They'd come back almost kind of like a zombie. Kind of. It's like they didn't really... Right. Like, they still had some of their faculties, but they weren't like a full-blown Dracula-style vampire. And so it was almost like levels of it. Yeah, and if he started feeding off of them slowly, they would turn into kind of like a servant that could talk to a certain extent. Yeah. That's how I understood it. Well, because, and that was kind of in the book too, and I feel like the book didn't go into that, because that's what Renfield was. Yeah. He wasn't undead, right. I don't think. No. He was just like a slave, so I assumed that Dracula had drank enough of his blood that he was like in thrall to him. Well, they never do really get into the possibility, is Dracula making them drink his blood? Right. Because that's how you made a vampire in Anne Rice's book. In Anne Rice's book, yeah. You made them, and the more blood you gave them, the stronger they'd get. But they were limited to the amount that you had to give in the first place. If you weren't a strong vampire, giving them a little bit of your blood might turn them into a weak vampire, but they would never become a strong vampire off of drinking you. Yeah. Because you weren't strong. Yeah. So... because it was kind of like it was thinning out that vampire bloodline type deal. So I don't think they ever really addressed that. They never showed him make anyone drink his blood. Maybe that's why he couldn't figure out how to reproduce. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Because I guess he hadn't tried that. But you'd think he would try that. I mean, somebody did drink his blood later. Yeah, but what happened to her? But not. It was what's her face? Well, what happened to her? Nothing, right? Not really. Okay. Well, she kind of like I think she gained like insight in the same way that he gained insight about like she could kind of like read his mind and stuff. That's how she figured out all that stuff that she said to him at the end. All right. Like, because I think she was kind of, so they had like some kind of mind meld. And also I think her doing that enabled her to contact or like, have the mind of her ancestor. All right. The Agatha, Sister Agatha. Yeah. In the modern era. So it's like it established a psychic link between her and her ancestor through his blood. Yeah. Because the lore is a little different. Actually, it wasn't a bad series. I kind of preferred that Dracula Untold movie. Yeah. Remember that Dracula Untold movie that we reviewed? Yeah. I liked that one better, I think. Yeah. This one, like I said, if you like, Sherlock, I've heard this is also like Stephen Moffat's other one, which is called Jekyll. If you kind of like that kind of tone that they do, where, they're taking like a 19th century story and like mixing it up with, like I said, either modern sensibilities or setting it in the modern day and like kind of bouncing those ideas off each other. Like I said, just don't expect, a faithful adaptation to the book, because this is not that. But really, it's like, do we need that? Because there's been so many adaptations of Dracula at this point. I mean, the book is like over 100 years old, and it's been made and remade into so many movies. So it's, interesting to see what other people do with the character.
I still think probably to this day, the best Dracula story is actually the one with Gary Oldman. Even though it's kind of, some of the effects on it aren't really modern. It's got terrible acting.
Yeah.
But I still think that's probably the best one.
Some of the, obviously Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder.
They just didn't belong in that damn movie.
If those two had been switched out, and I like them as actors in other things.
Their accents.
They're not good in period pieces, though. Winona Ryder's a bit better in that, but is in period pieces. But as long as they don't have to do accents, if they had got two British actors to be in that, I think that probably would have been like the perfect movie. Yeah. But just because everyone else in it was great.
Yeah, they just had to have American stars on a damn billboard to get people in
to get people to watch it, which is kind of a shame.
That's just what they thought. I think that they could have got other people. They were big names at the time.
Yeah, it's like, it does seem like they don't want to take a risk. It's like they don't want to say, it's like, the stars are bankable. It's like they don't want to just put like two British people that maybe Americans don't know. It's like, it's not saying that wouldn't be successful, because a lot of British movies are successful over here with, people that we're not as familiar with. But I guess it's a gamble they're not usually willing to take.
Although I gotta say, Klaus Kinski's Nosferatu was pretty good.
That was a weird ass movie. Klaus Kinski is just like a creepy ass person in real life, so it's just kind of like
makes you sick to see him, and that's kind of the way he was described in certain ways. Basically just a damn rat,
like a rat person,
like a rat that came out of a tomb, and that he was a plague, had plague upon mankind and living, and that's what he did. He just got people with fucking plague, and he just seemed to be real sickly, and just when he would talk, he was just like a fucking dork in a certain way. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. In some ways, I think that
disconnected from.
I think society, that Nosferatu, like the original F.W. Murnau one, and the the more recent in the 70s, but the one with Klaus Kinski in it. I think those are probably the closest. Yeah. Well, they're the closest to what the characters described, like in the book, at least early on, like when Harker first shows up.
He wasn't a romantic figure at all.
That was the Bela Lugosi thing, and that didn't come about until Universal in 1931. Like,
it looked better on the silver screen, they thought.
It's like nobody wants to see like this. Like with big pointy ears, like you know what I mean. It's kind of like hard to.
Oh, we can go outside.
I do love him in that movie, though. Because I think Nosferatu is super cool looking, like with his fucking long ass fingers.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen Nosferatu with Klaus Kinski, see that one.
Yeah, I think we reviewed it, didn't we?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is new Dracula. Like I said, if you're into that kind of Doctor Who-y, Jekyll-y, Sherlock-y type of thing,
it's better than watching nothing.
That's that's true of a lot of things.
Yeah, it's better than watching.
But it's like I actually really liked it. I know some people are kind of like, oh, the first two episodes were really good and the third one really sucked. I think the third one was a mixed bag. There's probably a couple things I would have done differently. I don't have a problem with him, like Dracula being in the present day or with some of the decisions they made. But, I might have done a couple things differently. But all in all, I thought it was like really enjoyable and,
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. All right, the second movie we watched this week was on Shudder. I don't know if it's a Shudder exclusive, but this was a 2020 anthology film called Ghost Stories.
Yeah, it's a good one. Indian.
Yeah. I don't see a lot of Indian horror movies.
No, India brought its A game with this one. I mean, it's good old-fashioned writing. Storytelling's really good. I liked it.
I did too. I thought this was a cool ass movie.
Original concepts?
Yeah, I had actually been hearing a little bit about it. I guess, I don't know if it did festivals or anything like that, but apparently the directors that worked on this, or the producers or whatever, this is kind of like, they had done another anthology film called Lust Stories that I think was like, 4 different directors or whatever doing like, love stories and sex stories and stuff like that. So this is their horror one.
Yeah.
So it has 4 stories in it. It's interesting because I was watching a couple other, because I subscribe to a couple other horror review channels. And it's interesting that it seemed like almost everybody liked the 3rd segment the best, and didn't like the first one, even though the first one was probably my favorite.
I liked them all.
The first or the second one was probably my favorite, if I had to pick.
Yeah, this is, you think of like, kind of like Creepshow.
Yeah.
Except it has more of a classical tone to it. It even kind of had a really good score. It had a classical score. I liked it. Each story kind of had its own style. You could see some. I don't know. Were the directors different?
Yeah, it was 4 different directors.
Okay, you can tell. Because on some of them, that last one with that family almost kind of felt a little bit like a Kubrick movie. Almost a little bit like some Shining. There were some Shining callbacks in some of that, wasn't there?
There was, yeah.
In the what do you call it? The
oh no, that was Dracula.
Was it Dracula?
That was in Dracula.
Okay. Because we were watching them close together, so I just remembered that watching this one.
Somebody had wallpaper that looked like the Shining carpet.
Yeah,
different colors.
It's
blue. that was in Dracula.
Okay, but still, this one here, there was that last one kind of felt like a Kubrick episode or something, or it had an influence from Stanley Kubrick. What it felt like to me.
Yeah.
But I really liked the score.
I did as well.
Yeah.
This just like this whole movie. It's the 4 segments are very, very different. I will say, like, the first one is kind of more like a classical ghost story, where it's just kind of like this. She's like a home care nurse named Samira.
Yeah.
And she shows up at this house. She's supposed to take care of this woman that has dementia. And, I guess the woman's son was supposed to be there and he didn't show up. So it's like, she's laying there and she's, there's pee everywhere and all this other kind of stuff. So there's like stuff with her and the creepy old woman. And then there's stuff with her and
she's chatting up this dude over the phone.
Her boyfriend who is supposed to he's going to leave his wife for her and blah, blah, blah. So there's like kind of all that kind of stuff going on. I'm not going to spoil the ending because I actually didn't see it coming.
The first one's almost kind of like a Twilight Zone episode.
It is, yeah.
In a way, they're all kind of like Twilight Zone episodes.
Yeah.
But just because that's the way Creepshow was and all the anthology. But this one kind of reminded me of a Twilight Zone episode. It was good. The tone was the most modern out of them all. This one really kind of felt like some of the new horror, the way the edits were. The one with the monsters in it felt a little bit more kind of throwback.
Yeah.
And that was the second one, wasn't it?
No, that was the third one.
That was the third one? Okay, which one was the second one
again?
The
second one was that really, really weird one where, like, remember, like, all the colors were kind of, like, drained out of it? It was almost like black and white, but not quite. It was like these really muted colors, and it was about the woman that was pregnant, and she had this son.
Yeah.
And then with the thing with the birds.
Yeah.
The bird.
Can't spoil that one either.
I really liked that one. Yeah. It's just I'm not entirely sure. Like, I think I kind of get what they were.
That's
where
one
they were
you had
going
to
with
see
it
a couple times, and I think maybe a little bit of Indian culture might have explained a little bit of that. I don't know if there was some kind of mythology that they were.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Having to do with birds.
Yeah.
But it was just fucking really weird.
It was really, that one had some really creepy.
And it was a lot grosser than what I expected from an Indian movie. This isn't like your typical Bollywood fucking movie where
not at all,
where everything's kind of censored and it's real super PG and the musical fucking number breaks out in the middle of the damn horror movie.
Yeah, none of them.
None of that shit happened.
The fourth one has like a little bit of that, like in the beginning of it. Like it doesn't have any dance numbers or anything like that, obviously, but it has more of that kind of like, Indian music video thing where it's like this big, beautiful, like palatial estate and like everyone's gorgeous and everything. But it did kind of go along with it. Yeah. The other ones are very much like
a horror,
Western art house horror movies. Yeah. I mean, I thought, like you said, the first one was very much like maybe like something from the Conjuring universe, like
Yeah, that's what I meant to say by more modern. It kind of felt like somehow the
cross-pollinated with the Twilight Zone type of vibe. The second one was very much like a very arty. Maybe something from like A24 or something like that, where it just had this weird look to it.
Was like there was body horror in it and shit too.
Yeah.
It was fucking weird. It was almost kind of like I almost want to say Eraserhead because some of it was kind of weird, so weird looking, but not really. It's just...
It did have a little bit of that kind of vibe to it. Yeah. And I guess because it was like centered around fetuses and stuff like that, it kind of gave me that sort of...
Yeah, remember the singing fucking girl inside the damn water heater? And that kind of, just that kind
the lady in the radiator.
Lady in the radiator. Yeah. And then like the third one was like an Indian zombie movie.
Yeah.
But they're not zombies. They're some kind of damn Indian monster. They're cannibalistic, and they turn into some kind of humanoid animals that kind of look like a damn dog man or an orc or a chaka.
I said he looked like evil Chaka.
Looked like a little Chaka.
Big evil Chaka.
Yeah.
Because as soon as like he came in, because that was the little girl's dad, right? The setup of that one is kind of like there's this guy, and he's sent to this town, which I guess when I looked on Wikipedia... the town is supposed to be called Beesgara, which I guess means small town. But the the fucking, what do you call them things at the bottom of the screen? The closed captioning, the subtitles. The subtitles just said small town and big town, named them those two things. So he's sent there because for his job, I guess he's supposed to assess the local school or something like that. You don't find that out till later. And when he gets there's only 2 kids left, and they say that, they ate everyone. Yeah. So it's kind of
he's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, so it's kind of like this thing where they're trying to get away from these... I guess they kind of act like zombies in the sense that they shuffle around and they're cannibals, but also I think the longer they're like that, like I said, they turn into big evil Chaka. Yeah. Because I think the girl's dad had been a cannibal the longest, so he looked the most like a Chaka. Yeah. Like some of the other ones were like in between.
Kind of look like a cross between a Bigfoot and a dog man and an orc.
Kind of, yeah.
It's just... I'm not going to explain it. Just watch it. It's a good one.
This one, too, had a little bit... And it's significant that the towns were called Beesgara and Saugar, which were small town and big town. Because it almost had a little bit... You remember when we reviewed that Brian Yuzna movie, Society, where we were talking about kind of the rich people eating off the poor ones or sucking out the poor ones? It kind of has a little bit of social satire in that. Sort of regard.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is like an original monster that they made up or if this is something traditional Indian kind of lore. There seemed to be some kind of a lore behind it.
There did, yeah. It did seem like, because they didn't really explain what they were.
They didn't have to explain because I guess they expected you to kind of know what was happening. To
kind of know what was happening. I mean, I just assumed it was kind of like a zombie person that they... ate people so long that they turned into an animal.
It's like a zombie that's like a vampire that turns into like a werewolf.
Because all of them. Because apparently they started out as regular people,
and
right?
Then it turns into a mummy. And then it turns into a mummy. And then it turns into a Frankenstein.
It's the evolution of the monster through all the fuck. And then he turns into the Gill Man.
Yeah. Motherfucker ends up as Godzilla at the end.
I would watch that movie. Yeah. Somebody needs to make
that.
Just cover all the fucking monsters in one movie. I guess Cabin in the Woods kind of did that a little bit.
I would think that India would attempt something like that.
I would watch the shit out of that.
Yeah, and it starts with an egg, like a xenomorph egg.
Then it hatches out and it goes through all
and then it goes through them all, and it goes through them all.
And then it does the face hugger, and then it turns into Chucky, and then it turns into...
Yeah.
Put all the modern monsters in there, too. Why not? It's gonna be a
all
really
of them are in there.
Movie. It's going to be a long movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the third one is kind of more like, kind of your post-apocalyptic... zombie type scenario. It has a little bit of a Walking Dead type of vibe. But with some social satire on top of it as well. Yeah. Then the fourth one is kind of like I said, this is the most Bollywood, and I don't mean that in a bad way. And it's like I said, there's no big dance.
It's all glamorous,
but it's glamorous. It's it's like a wealthy guy named Dhruv, and he he wants to do an arranged marriage. So he marries this woman named Ira, and they're both really young and beautiful, and he has
she's from a Christian family.
Yeah.
Christian Indians.
Well, no, he is.
He is, okay.
Yeah. Because
there's some Christian
that definitely plays into the story, because I think you actually missed that discussion.
I missed that part of it.
But so they get married, and he has this humongous, gorgeous mansion. And she's all happy and everything like that. But then she finds out that her new, like, really foxy husband also has this weird thing where he's apparently the only person that can see the ghost of his grandma who died 20 years ago. And so he's always, like, talking to her, and it's like, good night, Granny. And he's, like, all really weird about it. And she's, like, super weirded out about it, as she would be. And so she starts to get a little upset because she thinks her husband's nuts that he's seeing this. But then apparently his whole family is kind of in on this shit. It's like, oh, you know, we can't make Granny mad. Like, he's the only one that can see her, blah, blah, blah. So you find out all this other kind of stuff about it. And that one actually, you actually get to see a very old Indian woman saying, look at my fucking face.
Yeah.
which made me laugh so fucking hard.
Forgot to mention that all these stories are in Hindi.
Mostly. There's some English sprinkled through there.
They'll throw some English out there, but it's subtitles. Now, this last one has the most English in it.
Yeah.
And when she starts cussing, she starts, fuck in English. And I guess you can get away with that a little bit easier in India. I don't know. Get it past the censors. It's fucking funny.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of swearing in the third one. Yeah. Mostly from her. But like I said, it was funny because I'm sitting there thinking, like, when I was watching it, I was like, now, did they want to see, like, the way it ended and stuff, which, like I said, I'm not going to spoil it, but did they want to make it seem like she deserved it or like she got the comeuppance? But I was like, I felt for her. It's like, I would feel weirded out too. Like, if I married into some family and, like, the guy was, like, talking to a ghost and it's like, you couldn't, and, like, all his family was, like, really weird about it. And he was, like, had to ask the ghost before he could do anything. And it's like, the ghost kept, like, peeking in on him, like, when they were having sex and stuff. And he'd be like, oh, hey, Grandma, we're just, having sex. And I'd be like, yeah, that's a little weird. Yeah. So I didn't blame her at all for getting all upset. But, it's like, that one was probably, like, the funniest.
Yeah.
And some of the reviews I was watching earlier, it seemed like they really liked the zombie one, but it's like everybody kind of hated the fourth one, but I thought the fourth one was good. I liked it. It was probably, if I had to pick, it was probably my least favorite, but I still really liked it. I thought it was amusing.
The people that are saying this are probably like 15, 16 years old who are giving these reviews too.
They're guys.
And I can understand it. It's just, look, you got to take the movie as a whole. Yeah. I liked the anthology. I thought it could stand up there with some of the best American anthologies.
I thought it could too. I actually liked it more. I thought I liked it more than some of the more recent anthologies that I've seen.
It's a lot better than a lot of the recent Hollywood stuff. I mean, this is an A-game movie. I liked it.
I think I liked this one. This might be a bold statement, but I think I liked this one better than Nightmare Cinema, which an anthology that I reviewed the other day, which I liked. I actually quite liked, but I feel like that was a more mixed bag than this one. Because this one, I feel like all four stories were pretty strong, even though they were very, very different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, this is on Shudder. If you're not averse to reading subtitles, because like I said, this is mostly in Hindi. There's some English in there, mostly the swearing.
It's a strong entry from India.
But I really dug it. I thought it was really good. I was just like, I thought all the stories were great, and we'll see what else these guys have up their sleeves. I don't know if they're going to do any more horror, because like I said, they already did like a romance one like this, and they did another one too, but we'll see. All right, the third movie we saw this week, we went to the theater to see the remake, reboot, sequel-ish, kinda, of The Grudge.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can already tell how this is going to go. Well, okay. Now, here's what I will say. Like I said, I don't watch reviews or anything like that before I go see the movie. However, I had heard through the grapevine that this movie was getting terrible reviews, that it had like 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, like from both critics and audiences. So it wasn't a kind of thing where there was that going on. So that said, it was not as bad as I was expecting, because I was expecting it to be a total trash fire, like with a score that low. It actually wasn't, so it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. However, this is another movie, and I mentioned this last week when I was talking about the remake of Jacob's Ladder. This is just like another movie that you just kind of watch it and you're just like, why? Like, why was it made? It's not terrible. It's not like you don't want to like shoot yourself afterward or anything like that, but it's just kind of like, I don't really see the point of it. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the problem. You have a movie that doesn't have any really interesting characters driving it. They don't even really have very interesting dialogue. You don't care about anybody in the movie.
Yeah.
The pacing of it is fucking crazy. It's just very boring. You have paranormal shit happening, I guess, and you don't care, and it's doing a lot of flashing back, and you don't care, and then it does have some disturbing imagery in a few scenes, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, they did go for an R rating, to their credit. They didn't try to, dumb it down to, a PG-13, which I did appreciate.
But there is no real driving narrative, and there's no real driving characters in this story. And then it ends up in kind of I wouldn't even call it a climax, just a finish.
Yeah.
It ends up in a finish.
It just kind of goes...
There was no payoff for watching this fucking thing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I sat through that for this.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to build up to something. It never really did.
I feel like I heard that the international ending was different. That the end, that, you know what I mean? That there, was a little bit more. That, for some reason, they didn't put in the American one. I don't know why. But it
had some good ideas. It had some good imagery. But there wasn't even any really I needed a character that you could get through this movie with.
And
none of these characters are really likable.
It's a shame because the guy that directed it, Nicholas Pesh or whatever his name is, I mean, he did The Eyes of My Mother, which I really liked. Very art house. He also did another one called Piercing, which I haven't seen yet, but a lot of people have recommended to me that it's that's a really good underrated movie. So I feel like they kind of gave him this franchise. Now you had never seen any of the Grudge movies, so you weren't really
I'm judging it on it's just for the movie.
Now I saw the original Ju-on, which I liked. I saw the 2004 American remake with Sarah Michelle Gellar, which was fine. I remember it being all right. I will say that I haven't seen, they did a bunch of other, they did The Grudge 3, which I think went direct to DVD. Now in Japan, they have a shit ton of Grudge movies. They just kept doing them. There's a crossover with The Ring, the two girls from the ghost girl from The Ring and the ghost girl from The Grudge are fighting it out, which I have not seen. So I'm not a huge fan of the franchise, but... that said, it's I feel like I had the same problem with this movie that I had with the original Grudge movie and the American remake, in that the way that they're told is not, it's not a standard storytelling arc where, you know what I mean, where it's kind of a build up and then a climax and then a denouement. They didn't really have that. It's kind of done more episodic or cyclical,
which is something you see in Japanese
films. A lot of Asian movies are like that.
Drives you fucking nuts.
It can be done well, but in the Grudge movies, I just feel particularly in the first one, which I thought was really cool. I really liked, the ghost woman and the little boy, with the, that noise they made and stuff like that, which they did do in this movie, even though the ghosts are different. But I feel like it was kind of a case where you're seeing the ghosts tormenting this one family for a third of the movie, and then it stops, and then another family moves in, and it happens again. You know what I mean? So it just happened 3 times, and then the movie ends. So I feel like when you structure a movie like that, one, you can't really build any forward momentum. You're not spending enough time with the characters to really get invested in them or care what happens to them or if something bad happens to them. And it gets to a point where it's just repetitive, where it's just the ghost got these people. Oh, and now here's more people, and now the ghosts are going to get them in pretty much the same exact way.
Okay. She can describe it better than I can. She's a writer, but me as just somebody in the audience, I'm why is this happening? Why are they showing this to me? Okay, that's weird. All right, when's the story gonna start? And you go, oh, okay, this is kind of a story.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, didn't I just see this? Oh,
what I mean.
Didn't I just see this again?
And the thing too,
it doesn't make any sense to the average person.
The thing too about the Grudge mythology, the mythology that was set up in the first Ju-on. The mythology is not that complicated. I mean, the mythology is basically a house where something horrible happened. In the case of Ju-on, it was just this horrible multiple murder. And it's so the curse lingers around, and anybody who goes into the house, even if just for a few minutes, will carry that curse until they end up dying, which is kind of a common theme in a lot of Asian horror. Same thing with The Ring and stuff like that. But so I feel like once you've established a premise that simple, when you're watching it, it's just like more of the same. Like, you know that everybody that goes in that house is fucked, and there's not much you can do about it, and they're going to be fucked in pretty much the same way.
Right.
This one did try to do something different. Like I said, the two ghosts that were in, I can't remember their names, it was like a woman and a little kid. The two ghosts that were in the original Ju-on are not in this one. Basically, they've done something more like it's like a contagion. At the beginning, because this is supposed to be, when they first announced that they were doing this, they initially said it was going to be a reboot, and then they said, no, it's going to be a sequel. What it actually ended up being was what they call a sidequel. They said it in 2004 because it's supposed to be going on concurrently with the American remake, the one with Sarah Michelle Gellar in it, because it's like a different house. So there's like this woman that works at this one house in Japan, and then she comes back to her house in Pennsylvania, and she has brought the curse with her. So the movie's not set in Japan. Only the first couple of minutes are set in Japan, and they show this woman coming back, and you're presuming that she brought it back to the United States. And then it just, it focuses around her house, her family gets killed, and then it kind of goes. Now, they do have a through line in Detective Muldoon, who is played by Andrea Riseborough, who was in Mandy, and she was fucking great in that. And she's good in this. I really liked her in this. They
didn't give her anything to do.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like all the acting in this is fine, but they didn't really give anybody anything to work with.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No lines. It's the movie. The tone of the movie is very bland and monotonous.
Yeah,
and it's very bland.
And it's like some of the scenes, like they're having pretty much the same conversation again. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, we've established that. Yeah. That the house is cursed, and
she was
everybody
great
goes
in Mandy. Mandy's one of my favorite films.
Yeah,
fucking love Mandy.
Yeah, but, and I just feel like she was wasted in this.
It's they're trying to achieve some kind of tone that I guess the Japanese movies have.
Yeah,
but from my point of view, not knowing anything, just going in to see this movie, it's just a bland tone.
Although I've heard that people that even really like the first Grudge movie and even the remake didn't like this one either.
It's not even scary.
It wasn't really scary. Like it's just jump scares. You can tell when they're coming.
It's all telegraphed, and it's all the same.
The girl's gonna jump out of the tub.
Look in the bathtub.
It's gonna come out of the closet. It's all like that.
Yep.
And it's a shame because there's some great actors in this. Like I said, I've liked this director's other movies.
Weird situations and shit with the old lady and everything.
Lynn Shay, she was the old lady in this. I love her. She's like good in everything, and she committed. She was like pretty much the only person that looked like they were having a good time in this movie because she got to play like a crazy person.
The acting was good. It's just there's
nothing wrong with the actors.
There's no score.
I just felt like there was nothing.
No driving force behind the fucking. Like you said, there's no momentum.
Yeah.
There's no reason to watch the movie. It's very just kind of bland.
And like
it's not scary, and
I feel like there's not enough time because they jump back and forth.
Yeah, you don't know any of these characters.
From 2004 to 2006, and they try to establish some characterization. They do try to. But they're not really that successful at it because it's like you'll have 5 minutes with this family, and they're having a conversation, and then they cut back to another one.
And the tone is pretty much the same throughout the whole thing, so it's just kind of like monotonous and dull. And there's no one you really root for. There's no one you can really kind of relate to. There aren't very many conversations.
And the ones they
do have are kind of boring.
And you already know all of the stuff that they're saying. Because like I said, this the Grudge mythology is not complicated.
I spent that last 2/3 of the movie going, God, this needs to hurry up.
And it's only an hour and 34 minutes, but it seems a lot longer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
This needs to hurry up. And I said, why this? They need to edit this to go a little faster.
Yeah.
They need to, but if they edited it to go a little faster, it'd probably be a 20-minute movie.
If they took out all the unnecessary stuff.
Yeah.
I just feel, like I said, I see what they're doing. I know that they were trying to make it in the spirit of the original, which, like I said, was more episodic or a more cyclical type story. I think it worked in the first Grudge. But in this one, they jump back and forth so much that you don't really have time to get to know any of the characters. You know what I mean? Because you spend such a brief time with them, and then it goes back to this other story, and it keeps jumping back and forth in time. And so, there's nothing to really get a handle on. Like I said, the acting is fine.
It was good.
It looked cool. It had like a nice look to it.
It was the writing.
I think it was. And it just seemed like I said, it's a shame because everyone involved seemed like a talented person, but it's just like it got all put together and it just kind of came out.
It should have been turned into kind of like a standard paranormal investigation of some fucking haunted houses, and you just left it just very direct, and it probably would have been fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it probably wouldn't have been all that memorable, but it would have been.
At least it would have been fun to sit through.
Yeah, I mean, this would just seemed like I said, I was expecting it to be like horrifically bad. It wasn't horrifically bad. Yeah. It was just really, really boring. It was just kind of like the Jacob's Ladder remake, like I was saying. It's just it's not terrible. It's just not. Yeah. There's no point to it, and there's no point in like wasting time on it. Although, like I said, they might make another one because it's already made twice its budget back. So
this one,
yeah.
Made it with a camera.
I mean, it
was shot with a phone.
Well, it cost $10 million supposedly, but it's like then
they're clapping. They're like, we made our money back.
It met expectations for its first week, and it's already made $19 million, which you know what I mean. That's good for something small like that.
There were 3 other people watching it in the theater with us at 5:00 in the afternoon.
They kept wandering around back there. What the fuck were they doing?
And
plus that one old guy with the loud popcorn. I think he just came in the middle.
Yeah, well It's there's
he just came in and sat down and started rattling his fucking popcorn bag around.
There's a certain class of moviegoer, that just fucking walks around in the movies and just goes from one movie to the next.
I guess so. They don't really stop you.
No,
I mean, the kids that work there, they don't give a shit.
They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They don't clean the bathroom floor. You walk in there and feet fucking sticky. And it's the nicest theater.
It is.
I almost went in there and said, "Man, clean that fucking bathroom floor."
And they'd probably be like, "No, man, I make $7 an hour.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
You clean
Mop that fucking floor." Damn.
But yeah, so like I said, this is kind of getting savaged pretty much everywhere. It's not offensively terrible. It's just
boring.
Yeah, it's just really not worth watching. It was just kind of dull. And like I said, it's a shame because everybody involved is talented, and I feel like they were doing what they could do, but it just didn't come together.
The recent horror movies that we've seen blow this one out of the fucking water.
Yeah, there's just
no even the silly one about the kids in the amusement park.
What, Hellfest?
Hellfest.
You still remember that one?
Yeah, even Hellfest would blow this out of the water.
Hellfest
was fun to watch.
I would rather watch Hellfest than this one. I mean, like you said, at least that one was. I mean, it was dumb. But
I was laughing,
but at least it was a good time. Yeah. This one, there's just not really any reason for this to exist. I don't really see what the audience for it is. You know what I mean? It's like I said, why have they made like 1 million of these Grudge movies in Japan? I don't know. They have, but. They're starting to do it over here.
Escape Room blew this one away. Remember Escape Room?
Yeah. I actually didn't mind Escape Room. A lot of people didn't like it.
Really?
It's
like Escape Room. I'm waiting for the sequel.
I didn't mind it.
I like Escape Room.
Yeah, I think it did okay. But it's just, and a lot of reviewers that I watch it too, they make the point that for whatever reason, January is kind of the month when all the studios like dump their stuff that they don't think is going to do very well because I guess they're hoping people won't notice.
Like Star Wars. Oh, that actually they dumped.
That always comes out at Christmas. That's when your big movies come out. Yeah. Your big movies come out in summer or around Christmas time. After the holidays, that's kind of when you put your ones that are either like a big risk or that they kind of know aren't that great. And they're just kind of like, so January is like the movie dumping ground. Yeah. And for whatever reason, the first one that the big studio has put out in January is always a horror movie. Yeah. Like, because last year it was Escape Room, and a lot of people didn't like that one.
I liked it.
I liked it too, but it's like a lot of people didn't.
Yeah, assholes.
So, but this one, kind of the first big horror movie out of the year, and meh. Although, it looks like some good ones are coming. I'm very excited about Antlers. We saw the trailer for that during this one.
Actually, Gretel and Hansel looked pretty good.
That actually looked pretty decent.
It did.
It looked like it looks like a big homage to old Suspiria, like the original Suspiria.
I saw the damn poster to Gretel and Hansel. I'm like, oh, that's gonna fucking suck. I saw the trailer and I was like, oh man, that's fucking.
It's got the girl that was in the It Chapter 1 that played Beverly.
Yeah.
That girl's in it.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool, actually. It looks creepy. Actually, I want to see that, and I want to see Antlers, and...
Dr. Sleep wasn't bad. A lot of people didn't like it. I liked Dr. Sleep.
I did, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it looks like there's some good ones coming out, this year, so hopefully they'll be better than this one. Because, of course, it wouldn't be that hard to be better than this one. Just entertain me.
On poor dude's movie.
Just entertain me. That's all I asked. It wasn't as bad as it was just boring. That's all. It was just boring.
It wasn't fun to watch.
No, it wasn't. It was kind of like a slog.
We're still talking about it. We need to shut it down. Shut this fucker down. I'm tired of it.
All right. All right. Okay, I'll do what you say. All right.
Yeah,
so that'll be the end of the matinee show. We'll see some more movies next weekend. We'll see you next time.